Hello, everybody. This is Ben Rabb again, and I will be introducing this session on iCASP's activities in the broad area of climate services, which means translating climate data and science in a broad sense into useful information for decision makers. And it very much overlaps with iCASP's remit to translate environmental science for practical societal benefits. I'll say a few words about some of iCASP projects and then hand over to Dr. Claire Scannell from the UK Met Office to talk about some of the partnership work that we're involved with there. So I'll start by saying a little bit about the original UK CPA team project back in 2017, how that fed into the water efficiency brief for local authorities, and how we were invited to join the Climate Coalition's Show the Love campaign. I'll then hand over to Claire to talk a little bit about her project on prototyping urban climate services, specifically in Leeds, as part of the UK Research and Innovation Strategic Priority Fund, SPF. And then I'll talk a little bit about another iCASP project which links in with that, which is about using environmental science for health and well-being in the climate emergency, in partnership with Public Health England. So back in 2017, in what was iCASP's first project, we developed 2 case studies on how partners in the region could make use of the then forthcoming UK CP18 information. So we had a project partnership including the Environment Agency, Yorkshire Water, the Met Office, Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, JBA, the National Farmers Union and Leeds City Council. And between us we came up with 2 case studies exploring various pathways in which these organisations could make use of this information to firstly assess the future risk of drought and secondly the future risk of flooding. The drought case study focused primarily on updating a drought severity index methodology that Yorkshire Water had previously used with UKCP 12. The flooding case study focused on updating rainfall intensity, depth, duration information, which can be used to deliver updated flood risk maps incorporating climate projections. And this is really important because one of the great advances in CP18 is high resolution 2.2 kilometre climate modelling, which allows for high intensity convective rainfall to be simulated. So this updating of flood risk in particular is really important. Around the time of the launch of the projections, these 2 case studies were assimilated into a 2-page brief that is hosted on the Met Office website for other users to refer to when they try to make use of the new projections. At the same time, we convened a regional UK CP18 forum, specifically for the Yorkshire community of practitioners, so they could ask questions of the Met Office team and other users, connect organisations and individuals using or planning to use the information. UK CP18 played a really important role in providing evidence for local authorities to implement more stringent water efficiency measures. At the moment, UK building regulations require that new dwellings aim to achieve a water efficiency target of 125 litres per day per person. The regulations give a bit of scope in that local planning authorities can implement a more ambitious, stringent target of 110 litres per day if they can evidence the need that they are in a particularly water-stressed area. And typically, areas in the south and southeast of England implement these more ambitious targets. What we did was put together evidence based in part on UK CP18 projections to say that local authorities in the Yorkshire region are likely to experience water stress requiring this more stringent water efficiency measure as well. And on the basis of this evidence, the Leeds City Council have adopted this reduced target. And this evidence is just as relevant to other local authorities in the region, so you're more than welcome to make use of that if it's appropriate. Through our involvement with the climate projections, we were invited to collaborate with the Priestley Centre, International Centre for Climate, also based at the University of Leeds, to act as scientific advisors and contribute to a report for the Climate Coalition's annual Show the Love campaign. The Climate Coalition is a group of over 140 organisations, including the National Trust, the WI, Oxfam and RSPB. And every year on Valentine's Day, they run a campaign to showcase the impact of climate change on an aspect of society. And this year they chose the impact of climate change on Britain's housing. So we provided a bit of science background to the impact of climate change on flooding, heat and drought, specifically associated with housing. And what this gave us is the opportunity to also showcase some of our other associated work on nature-based solutions or working with natural processes like peatland restoration, natural flood management, and green and blue infrastructure as really good examples of win-win strategies whereby you reduce carbon emissions, sequester carbon, and also improve the resilience of where people live. So before I hand over to Claire at the Met Office, the last project I wanted to introduce is an exciting new project called Environmental Science for Health and Wellbeing in the Climate Emergency. And the aim of this project is to identify the latest environmental data to help local authorities evidence collaborative decision making across departments which typically don't speak to each other. So for example, flood risk management and the education, children's services, transport, public health, all these various groups are coming together to form decision making groups in response to the climate emergency, but there's a need for them to be able to overlay their data sets which relate to their decisions with others in a coherent way. The other aim is to help monitor the effectiveness of any interventions over time. So if a clean air zone is implemented, what is the impact that's going to have on the incidence of illness in the city? And the project is focused around a tool called SHAPE, which stands for Strategic Health Asset Planning and Evaluation, which is an existing tool developed by an SME in Leeds called Parallel, and it's hosted on behalf of Public Health England. It's used by 8,000 people across the UK, and it allows data from different departments to be visualised together to reveal new insights. So for now, I'm going to hand over to Claire to talk a little bit about the associated Met Office project on climate services, but I will come back to say a few more words about how we could use the Met Office data in this particular project.
Thanks, Ben. I am Claire Scannell and I'm part of the Urban Climate Services team at the Met Office. Part of our role is to use climate information to develop robust climate services for city decision makers so they can make informed decisions about the future. Today, I would like to give a brief overview of some of the work we are doing with a particular focus on precipitation through the Strategic Priority Fund programme. This is a 5-year joint Met Office UKRI programme of which we are in year 2. In year 1, we developed a city pack with Bristol City Council. On the slides, you will see the Leeds version of this, which comprises of 3 non-technical fact sheets, one around the science, one around the results, and one around the results explained. These contain headline messages on what climate change means for a particular city using the UKCP 25-kilometre projections across all scenarios. These very much help to place the scale of climate change into context for city decision makers. For example, if we focus on precipitation, by 2080 in the worst case scenario, we could see up to a 30% increase in rainfall in the winter in the Leeds area. In year 2 and onwards, we would like to work with cities and support their efforts to become more resilient to climate change by developing services at a city level focused on key climate variables such as precipitation and heat, and placing this in the context of key city interests such as blue-green infrastructure or particular vulnerabilities identified by the city. These slides are courtesy of Daniel Cotterill at the Met Office and is work which he is doing as part of the SPF programme, and illustrates the type of work that we could do at a city scale. The information on these plots are generated from the 12-kilometre UK CP or CP 8.5 data and are for the period October through to December. The first plot on the left shows the future return period of extreme events with greater than 50 millimetres of precipitation, and the second plot on the right shows the percentage increase in the frequency of these events between 1990 and 2080. If we focus on the Leeds area, which is highlighted by the red circle, we can see that under this scenario, such heavy rainfall events could become as frequent as 1 in 5 year events by 2080, which represents a greater than a 100% increase from 1990. What we would like to do is create the narrative for UK cities within this national context and build the evidence base that city decision makers need to make informed decisions. Based on this, and through iCASP, we have recently started discussing with Leeds City Council on the potential of such services, with the aim to develop a prototype over the next few months. If anyone has any queries, comments, or would like to provide feedback, all of which would be very much appreciated, please feel free to contact me. My email address is on the slide, and the website link to the SPF programme is on the page for further information. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire. As I said, I thought I'd come back and say a few words about how we could use the information like what Claire's been talking about with the climate projections and other environmental data that iCASP is involved with, to use that in the project we have on health and well-being in local authorities and interdisciplinary decision making, which is now occurring in response to the climate emergency declarations at more or less every local authority and combined authority in the country. And here are just a few ideas about the sort of decisions that could be made as when you overlay data sets from a variety of different sectors and sources. So, for example, we can engage the education department on issues to do with sources of flooding and encourage them to take up sustainable drainage. We could locate areas where green and blue infrastructure could relieve particular pockets of mental health and also relieve flood risk in a city. We can also use the tools that we're going to be developing in this project to monitor the impact of decisions. So will the clean air zone proposed in Leeds lead to a reduction in respiratory illness? And many more. We're at a very early stage with this project. We're just beginning consultations at the moment. So please get in touch if you want to find out more about this project. Thank you very much.